Like a lot of you out there, I spend way too much time scrolling through TikTok, Instagram and Pinterest looking for artworks that inspire me. And then every now and again I come across that one piece that makes me think, I could make that.
And this week I'll be doing exactly that. I'll be taking this artwork here from Liza Vaughn Art that I found on Instagram and seeing just how much work it takes to make one of my own. And as a note, it was a lot more work than I expected.
So to start this piece, we're going to need a canvas. In this case, I'm going to be breaking mine up over these 3 tall canvases to give us a bit of a split piece. So we'll take these outside, lay them down on a piece of canvas and get some paint ready. In this case, I'm using Theatre Black for a nice matte black base. I'll be starting out with a paint roller to help me apply this as quickly as possible across all 3 of these canvases. We want a nice even spread of this matte black paint, and this is the quickest way to get that done. Once we cover all 3 in this black paint, we're also going to come in and make sure to cover up all of the sides. We don't want any of that white sticking through on our final pieces. Once it's all covered up, we'll come back in with a couple more layers of that paint to really give us a nice flat black. Now it's time to add some gold leaf to these flat black canvases. For this we're going to be using Mod Podge. A nice thin layer coating most of the canvas works perfectly to stick down this gold leaf. We don't want the Mod Podge to be down too thick, but we want to make sure to cover the entire area so that it really holds the gold leaf in place. Then we just start laying down our leaf and pressing it down in place. The gold leaf is very delicate, so you might want to take your time here, but ultimately knowing that you can come back in and fix up any patches later on is going to be your savior. So we just continue this over the entirety of the canvases down to the point where you want that dripping effect. I aim to cover roughly 2/3 of each of these canvases with the gold before adding in the drips. Once you have your drips in place, just give them a really healthy coat, letting the gold overlay further beyond the point. This will all come off later on anyway, and it just makes sure that you've gone right to the very edge. And once that's had about a day to dry, it's time for the cleanup. We'll come in with a fairly soft bristled brush and just start wiping it over the entirety of the gold. This will pull away anything that's not glued down and leave us with a nice flat gold along everywhere that we stuck our glue. You'll notice that there are a lot of patches that this hasn't worked well for me. I've either missed this or haven't pushed the glue down properly, but we'll come back in and fix these up with all of this excess. So make sure to collect it in a plastic cup or container as you go. This stuff is always useful to come back in and fix up these gaps. So to fix up all these misplaces, I'll grab a paintbrush and start applying the Mod Podge. A bit thicker this time to really make sure it sticks down. Then we'll be using all of that waste that came off in our first overbrush to try and cover up these black sections. Ideally, you do a better job than I did on the first layer of glue, so you don't have so many open areas of black that you need to cover up. Once that's had a chance to dry, we'll come back in and wipe away the excess yet again. This entire process will be repeated over and over again until I'm happy with the amount of coverage with the gold. I'm still learning how to really make the most out of this kind of gold leaf effect, so there's definitely still a lot of room for improvement. I did attempt to fill in the gaps with a gold paint pen, but this was an obviously different colour of gold. So ultimately I just kept coming back in again with more glue and applying more and more layers of the gold leaf. Until eventually I was pretty happy with my coverage. But at this point I decided I wanted the drips to come down a bit further, taking up more of the matte black. So I came back in with the glue and just kept extending these drip sections, applying more fresh layers of the gold leaf to bring that further down the canvas. And continued this along all 3 of the canvases, trying to match up the edges as best as I could to keep a continual looking pattern. Each stage of this was then given a day to dry before coming back in to wipe away all the excess. You really want to make sure that that glue underneath is dry before coming in with the brush, otherwise you'll be pulling gold leaf off the areas that you want it to stick down. I removed some of these bigger excess pieces with my hands as to keep them from getting all crinkled up, giving me a little bit more reuse of them to cover up extra patches as we go. Then coming back in with that same brush from earlier and really smashing off all of the excess that isn't stuck in place. Now I did my best to try and keep as much little bits of gold away from these black bits at the base, as we really want them to stay as a matte black. Ultimately, I stuffed this up and had to repaint it again later on, so don't be too concerned if you get some gold stuck down here. The next stage is to apply some gold to the edges. I don't want to frame these, so I'd like the gold to wrap around the edge to really make it feel like the gold is taking over the entire canvas. So we'll put a few beads of glue on the side, spread them out, and start adding down our gold leaf. Then repeating the process on the other side. Once all of our gold leaf is down, we give it a night to dry and come back in and brush off the excess in the exact same way we did to the top layers, leaving us with a really nice golden drip effect canvas. That admittedly took me a few extra days to really get in there and cover up as many of the black spots as I could. Once I was happy with the final result, I pulled out a beeswax furniture polish. I've used this over the gold leaf in the past and it works great to still leave us with a nice shiny gold effect, so I thought I'd give it a try. Basically, you take a rag, get a good clump of the wax and just start applying it to the painting. I started on the black section, hoping I could keep the excess pieces of gold away from the bottom area. Ultimately, this did not work. I ended up pulling a whole heap of gold down and getting it stuck in the polish over the black, so this needed to be repainted. But in the meantime, I'll go over all of the gold sections with this polish, really holding everything down nice and flat and giving us a nice polished effect over the entire canvas. I really do like the effect that this has over the gold, and realistically you just need to make sure that you've cleaned up your gold nicely before coming back in and spreading all those little gold flakes over the bottom areas of matte black. It was this area here that you can really see that I start to spread those extra gold flakes down and they get stuck in the beeswax polish. So again, I come back in once this is all dried and had to repaint the bottom section. It's not the end of the world because really it's just another part of the learning process, but it is something that I will take note of for next time I work with these products. And hopefully by me making this mistake, you won't have to. Now we give this first layer a day to dry before we're left with a nice end result. At this point, you can really see all of those gold flakes that got caught up in the polish. So as I mentioned earlier, I came back in with that same theatre matte black paint and gave this all a recoat to cover it up. Once all this had a day to dry, I came back in with one final layer of that wax polish, making sure to keep the two sections very separate this time.
And now I have a piece of art that I'm happy with. And to think this all came from the inspiration of scrolling through Instagram. Once again, I'd recommend checking out the original artist, Liza.Vaughan_art. She has a whole collection of these gold leaf on canvas pieces and every single one of them is amazing. These were a huge inspiration to me and have led to me creating something entirely new that I normally wouldn't have gone near. All I need now is a few hooks and some wire to hang these pieces on my wall. I started this video presenting the idea that a lot of us have when we see an artwork online or hanging on a wall. That thought of, I could do that, and maybe, just maybe, sometimes that's the point. By seeing this artwork, I was inspired to have a go at actually creating it. And along the way, I've learned a whole heap of new processes that I can apply to my art. And I've ended up with something that I'm proud to hang on my wall. So I would encourage you to get out there and find something that inspires you and have a go at recreating it yourself. It's amazing what you can pull off with a little bit of hard work and some inspiration. Once again, check out Liza Vaughan Art on Instagram. She has some amazing works that might inspire you to build something of your own. Otherwise, check out some of my other videos and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me build in the future. Until next time, never stop making stuff.
And here's the next video in this series, if it's done yet. Otherwise, this will be something that YouTube thinks you'll like.